I wonder if I can do this in one take. Oh, say hi. Alright, well, he's gonna be in the video, but if I end up editing this, then that means I failed in my one take attempt. But basically, as the state of the world is, starting to return to normal, right? With people getting the vaccine and, things opening back up here in the US. Um, I This is something that I've been saying for the past ever since I started working in the professional world, and it's basically the argument that remote work should be the future. I have my notes over there. If you see me looking away, but basically I'm talking about work that doesn't require you to be in a physical location, right? So obviously, if you're in like the hospitality or the food industry, like I'm not talking about those types of jobs. I'm literally talking about the type of job that only requires nothing else but a computer and a internet connection. So we're in the age of technology, and a lot of those jobs can be done really from anywhere as long as you have the technology, right? The computer and the internet. And I'm strictly speaking from an employee's point of view. Okay. So I'm not speaking from like a manager's point of view. I'm not speaking from an owner's point of view. So I'm not gonna be talking about anything about like cost saving than all these other factors, right? I'm strictly talking about from a standpoint of an employee who works in a job that requires nothing but a computer and internet connection. So things in the technology sector, things like call centers, right? Like you can do that from your home, right? Like a lot of us have been doing during the pandemic, right? For the past year. So, um, reason number one why remote work should be the future is really the biggest one is getting time back for your own life, right? Just think about how much time like the average worker spend on daily routine uh, around work. So we're talking about the typical 9 to 5 where you have to commute to a physical location to work. So you set your alarm, you wake up, you get ready. So the getting ready ritual is brushing your teeth, getting taking a shower, getting dressed. If you're a woman, like maybe putting on makeup, right? If you're a guy, put on makeup, sure. Um, what else? Eating breakfast, taking care of like business, right? Like if you have kids or like animals and whatever else. And then there's like the whole commuting part, which is public transportation. Okay, great. Uh, you go to the bus station or the train station, however you get there. Whether you park at the train station or and then take the train, or if you drive to work and then you gotta sit through traffic and find parking and all of that. So that's just the morning routine. And then there's the after work routine. And I don't even need to explain there, but like when I was living in California, like when I took public transportation to work, like the daily round trip um, took a minimum of 2 hours because I did not live in the city where I work. So, the round trip commute was at least 2 hours for me. Um, And for a lot of people, like they live even further, it's not uncommon for someone to commute like 3 hours a day, right? So if we're talking about a 9 to 5, you're at your work for 9 hours a day. You're spending 3 hours on your commute. That's 12, okay? And then you're doing your pre and post work routine, which is whatever. Add in another 1 hour. So that's 13 hours out of your day. Um, how many hours do you sleep a night? What does that leave us to take care of ourselves? You do the math. So getting time back is like probably the biggest like advantage of remote work. You know, more time for your family, more time for your health, more time for entertainment, enjoying life. You know, life is not just about work. Your life could like you could be doing meaningful work, like for sure. Um, but for the average person, if you're working for a man on 9 to 5, yeah, you're probably like if it's your life's work, you're probably in the minority. Is all I will say. So point number two is really what I already touched on, but the commute, right? So like I mentioned, it's not uncommon to spend 2 to 3 hours on a daily round trip commute. Fortunately, like since I moved to Oregon, like my commute pre-pandemic was really not that bad. It probably only took no, it took less than an hour a day, which is way better than the 2 plus that I was spending when I was in California. But a lot of people aren't that fortunate to have a short, quick commute. Um, so the time is obviously one factor, but I would say also like a just as equally as important is the the stress associated with commuting, um, like dealing with public transportation, dealing with sitting in traffic um, on a daily basis. Like if you've ever sat in traffic, like you would know, like people aren't typically excited about it. Had a long ass day at work, and like the last thing you want is to be stuck in traffic for like an hour and a half just trying to make it home to like relax, unwind, like take care of yourself and your family. The faces on those people who are stuck in traffic is chances are it's not gonna be like a good one, right? Because it's stress. It's just unnecessary stress because um, of the commute, to work. Um, and I would also say like if for those jobs that do not require you to be in a physical location that can be done, from home. Um, I don't know like the science, but I would assume that would cut down a lot of the cars on the road and the buses on the road. So theoretically, that would make traffic better flowing for those people who have jobs that do require them to be in a physical location, or like drive around, right, to client locations. So, um, yeah, like the stress is the really big one. And like obviously, like you can mitigate it by, taking advantage of like listening to audiobooks and whatnot. But end of the day, commuting, traffic, public transportation is a source of stress. So, and the third point is being. If we think about like being in a physical space, like sure, it was a place where you did your work, right? Um, and back in the day, probably there wasn't like, well, there wasn't like internet, and then you know, but But the point is, we are in the modern age, and being in a physical space to do remotable work is a very archaic way of operating. Like, what is the purpose of being in a physical space? Like, sure, you probably heard this line before. It's like, oh, in person, great for team culture. It encourages um, team collaboration and like creativity and blah blah blah. Sure, that is possible. Not saying it's not, but also I feel like you know, a lot of like a very possible reason would be to get micromanaged. Like, no one likes being micromanaged, and I understand some people need to be micromanaged because whatever, they're not like an excellent worker or whatever. But at the end of the day, like, whether you get micromanaged or not, the result will prove your effort, right? Like, how much work you do, the quality of your work. Like, there should be some way to measure your results, right? Whether it's like the number of phone calls you make, or the number of cases you solve, or like how many projects you worked on, blah blah blah. Like, uh, yeah, like that, like the results will speak for itself, whether you get micromanaged or not. And uh, as far as the collaboration and creativity part goes, like, I'm not gonna lie, right? Like, being in person will probably have like like a better environment for that. But technology nowadays is good enough for most types of collaboration, right? To host most sort of meetings, presentations, like whatever it is. Like, so technology is obviously not the same as being in person, but it gets like 80% of the job done. So technology isn't really the problem. Like, our technology is good. Um, and yeah, those were really the 3 points. And I do acknowledge that like probably most, like 50+% of the jobs out there in society cannot be done remotely, right? Restaurant, valet, hotel, like all these jobs, obviously cannot be remote. So, but in this video, I am strictly talking about those jobs that just require your freaking computer and a freaking internet connection, which is nowadays like probably 50% of the jobs out there are done in that manner. So I feel like requiring people to be in a like in an office is just not necessary. Like, it's just not necessary. And I also understand, like, not everyone likes working remote. Like, some people love being around people. So working remotely is not for everyone, right? But I do feel like for some people, you know, like for some people who have like kids, or like they just like being at home, or like they got responsibilities, or like whatever the reason is, like for those people who would benefit and would want to work remotely, like it could truly be a game changer for them. Um, like for me, I hate wasting time, and I don't really hate that many things in life, but uh, traffic and commuting, like I said in previous videos, traffic and like commuting and wasting time is like one of the top three things that I hate the most in life. Because it's a waste of time, waste of energy, waste of effort. It kind of like it just takes away from your day and takes away from your quality of life. So I think having the flexibility to work partially or to work fully remote, and just having that option, right? Um, it should be the way of the future. So that's it. I mean, if you have a counter argument to that, like I would love to hear it because I don't really see the advantage of not working remote for a job that could be fully remotable. So, yep, that's it. Peace.